Welcome back to our channel. This is the next part of our kitchen build. We left off last time with the face frames being applied to the carcasses. The next step is going to be measuring for all the doors and making up that material. That's the next step. All right, here's my cut list for the doors. All the doors are the same height, and I need 7 doors total. So I'm gonna start getting that material out of the maple that's in the other room, and I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do it with a bead on the inside or just square stock. I'm gonna make that decision real soon. All right, here's the door stock, the stiles and rails, all ripped, oversized in length. The width and thickness is all set. So I'm going to, next step for this is I already marked the best side so that it'll be consistent. I am going to make the groove in the center, but I did mark one side, the best side, as the face side. So that'll help me orient stuff as I'm working with it. All right, the next step on the door build, the cabinet door build, is to make the groove to accept the 3/8 panel. And I want the groove to be centered. It's going to make it a lot easier when I make the rails that go into these stiles. So the height of the groove doesn't matter that much. It's about 1/4 inch. At this point, that's irrelevant. But I ran a sample. I put the dado head in and you can see that's what we're going for. Nice, the perfect fit. So we're going to run all the parts of the doors. All right, I got all of the stiles and rails for the doors cut, and the groove is all in the center. Now I'm going to cut the stiles. They're all this one length. Every one of these, all the doors are the same height, but the rails are different. So to figure out, I have the cut list for the rails, and I need to know the stile length plus the tenon, which is going to go into the groove. So I just put two together instead of, it's more accurate that way, and measure that, and oh by golly, it's 1/2 inch, but it could be anything else. I'm going to cut all the stiles right now, set up a stop on the chop saw, cut them all to length, and then start cutting the rails to the correct lengths, and then I'll make the tenons on the end of them so that they will slip into here. All right, we're going to try this again to explain what's going on. So the first door that I'm going to make, 16 15/16 according to the list. So I measure out, these represent the two stiles, so 16 15/16 comes to right here. So the rail would be + the 1/2 inch for the tongues on either side gives me 13 inches. So the first door is rails are going to be 13 inches. And that's what that 1/2 inch that I was trying to draw earlier means. So the next door is 16 3/4. Basically it's 12 13/16. It just takes all the guesswork out of it. Next door is 12 1/8. And it's reading 8 3/16. Anyway, that's how I'm going to figure the length of the rails. And then I'll set up the table saw to make that tongue. Oh, there we go. So that's how it's supposed to fit. And this door is supposed to be 16 15/16 if I did it right. Oh, look at that, right on the money. So I know the setup is correct, so I'll start cutting the rails and making the tenons on the end. All right, that's all of the stiles and rails for the doors. They all have all the milling is done on them. And while they were here, I took the time to sand all of these edges because it's easier to hold them together as a block, and it's easier to sand them and more accurate to sand them together than it is an individual with a sander would tip and give you, yeah. So that's what I did. I sanded all the milling marks. So when I go to assemble the panels in there, all that little edge is all sanded. I just have to do the faces. I'm actually going to put these on the mortising machine and mortise out for floating tenons in the doors. Seems overkill for some people, but anyway, that's going to give me a bomb-proof door. You could drop it on its corner. It's never going to break. There are all the door parts except for the panels. All the stiles and the rails, all the floating tenons. I actually assembled one of them. So the next step is to cut all the panels. So we'll get all these doors glued together today. And yeah, we'll just keep going. I'm gluing the panels in because this is MDF and it's not going to be moving around. If they were solid wood panels, I would never do this. I would never glue them in. But since this is MDF or plywood, I'm going to just glue these in. And the last step is to pound these down so that they're against the clamps completely. And that's it. I'm gonna go put it in the other room and keep gluing up more doors. Welcome back to the kitchen cabinet build project. This morning I am going to be, I got all the doors glued up yesterday, and so they're all ready to be worked. So I'm going to be sanding them. There is no front or back, so I'm going to treat them as both sides as the good side, and just going to be sanding all the mill marks off, getting any of the glue off of the faces. Anyway, let me put my mask on and start the sander up and start sanding all of these. All right, there it is. That's all I'm going to do for now. I'm going to get all the 7 doors to this stage. I've wetted them with a damp cloth, and I put them back by the wood stove to dry off, and now I'm just going to sand them with 150. Just the faces, not the edges. So I'm using whatever, the chop saw, the table saw, whatever, to trim up these panels so that they fit properly in the openings. Get this all in the film frame. I was watching a guy on YouTube, and he was fitting doors and drawer fronts, and he used cards. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. But I use nickels. They're plentiful. They don't ever change thickness. If you lose them, if they get, doesn't matter. You can get them wet. They don't ever change. So I've been using them as a spacer, and they over the years, and all the cabinets, doors and drawers seem to shrink and swell. And they're still, the nickel spacing on either side is still adequate. It's not too big and it's not too small. So that's what I'm using. And so I just put a couple nickels. I hope you can see that. Just put a couple nickels on the bottom. And I try to slip one in at the top. So that's perfect. So the top and the bottom are all set. It's got the equal gap on the top and the bottom. And now I'm just going to put it on the joiner and joint a little off of each side till I could fit a nickel on either side. And then that door is ready to be, the edge is ready to be sanded. And this is actually a pull-out tray, pull-out door for trays. And I've got to make the tray basket thing that this door attaches to. But there you have it. It's really trial and error. It's use whatever tool you have that you feel comfortable with, or multiple tools, and try to get the gap even all the way around. Hopefully you can see that. You can see the nickels in here. There's a gap underneath, and the gap is consistent all the way around. So yeah, there you have it. That's how I fit the doors. So this is my edge sanding setup. It's simple. Oh, come on. It's just, get this out of here. It's a board. These screws actually poke through the back just the littlest amount, and they stick to the top of the table here, so that can't go anywhere. And basically, the sander fits right down in there. And I'll take the doors and I'll just lightly go around and sand the edges, and to get off the mill marks and any burn marks. Now this is all paint grade, so it doesn't matter that much, but this system also works really good if you have to do some fine adjusting, and you can't get that on the joiner or anywhere else. You can take a little bit off with this machine. So this setup works really good. So let's try it out. All right, that's excellent. Actually, I might hit this edge again. Both of these edges. But the other nice thing about this is it keeps that edge nice and square. If I was to try to sand this in the vise, the sander would probably tip. But this gives me a nice square edge, which I'm going for. The first door that I fit is actually a pull-out tray. Pull-out door, so there's no hinges on it. The second door I fit, which is this one, has a knob on it, and it'll be hinged. So that means that I want to put a small bevel on this side so that when you open and close, it doesn't come into contact with that. So I have another little trick up my sleeve here. Hopefully you can see the joiner. So I have these sticks, a couple of different sizes, and they just fit, they notch over the end of the joiner. And then so when you put the panel against that and against the top of this, it gives you a little bevel, a consistent little bevel on this one. So now I have a bevel on this edge, and the door will close without binding. All right, next step is to drill out for the hinges. There's that. Now I can, I had initially written on here back top, but I'm gonna actually write it in the cup here, where the cup of the hinge goes, because everything else can get sanded or painted, but you'll always be able to read where this door goes in there. That never gets any finish on it. So. All right, there are the two hinges. Now we just need to go hang the door in the cabinet. All right, so this is what it looks like with one door hung. It's these are 110-degree hinges, so it opens up a little beyond 90. There's going to be one shelf in here. I'm going to get to that maybe tomorrow, but there we go. One door with the proper margins, all ready to be painted. All right, it's the end of the day, and I've got that cabinet pretty close. Those doors are pretty close to fitting. This one I think has to go up a little bit, but I don't want to mess with them too much because all the hardware is going to be taken off so they can get painted. So they're going to have to get fussed with a little bit more. Anyway, my plan is hopefully tomorrow to get all the doors fit, all the shelves made, and start working on drawers. So stick around. Tomorrow should be a nice day. Well, welcome back, YouTubers. This morning, it was -4 degrees, and they said the wind chill was between, could have been down to -20. And when I walked down to the shop, it was cold. So, excuse me, a little dusty in here. This morning I am working on shelves for the cabinets. This morning I ripped up some pre-finished plywood, the stuff that I've been hoarding, and that's what it's kind of yellowy, but that's what it looks like. And I need to put on a nosing on the front of all of the shelves because no one wants to look at the edge of the plywood. So I set up the shaper and I plowed out a 1/4-inch groove that matches on both sides, and I'll actually put a glue in and a spline in there, and that'll get this perfectly even with the top. But no one wants to look at this just square edge, so we're going to use a machine you haven't seen me use in the shop. It's called a Williams and Hussey, and this one's pretty old, but I got a kit to change it over so the both drive rollers roll now, but it still works awesome. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this profile. So these are the knives. You can buy standard knives. They have a big catalog, Williams and Hussey, or I think Schmidt also has a catalog full of knives, or you can custom order them, and I have a drawer full of custom knives from different projects. Let me just take the I don't know if I can do this one-handed. Hold on. So you can see there are a set of knives in here from the last project I did. So I'll take those out and install these and set up some feather boards, and we will run this stock through. And what I wanted to do is to put the groove in it first, because it's a lot easier to run this through the shaper while it's got square edges, and then this just lays down flat and I'll put the profile on top. So let me get set up and we'll run some molding. All right, that's what it looks like when the knives are in place. I don't have the shield on, but basically it's all set up with the feather boards to just feed it right through. So I'll just turn it on quickly. You can see what it looks like. So this was sold originally as a planer moulder, but it's not a very good planer, but it's pretty good molding machine. Now I can also make moldings on my shaper with my router and the table saw, but this is a pretty good molding machine unto itself. So of course it's covered in oil. I should really clean the thing. All right, I'm going to get the camera set up and on the tripod, and we'll run some of this molding through. So that's the profile we're looking for, and I just have to lightly sand it, make up a spline, and I can glue it onto the front of the shelves. Here's gluing up the shelves with the nosings on them. And gluing the slot. Stick the spline in. All right, let's try this again. That part. There's not much stress on this joint, so I'm not going too crazy, but thin bead of glue on each side has always held it in place in the past. Let's see if it'll fit. Can you see that? That's what we're looking for. This whole shelf is oversized, too long and too wide, so stick it in the clamps. It's a struggle. What would it be without a struggle? And there we go. One nosing glued onto the shelves. All right, I am getting ready to install the shelves. And as you can see, there are no holes for the shelf pins. These are the shelf pins. There are no holes for the shelf pins. Now, normally I would, before I had assembled the boxes, I would drill all the shelf pin holes on the drill press ahead of time. So basically they're all done. But I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I didn't want to drill a bunch of holes. And this only has one shelf. So I'm only going to drill 4 holes. So I figured I would just wait till now and drill the holes. Not a big deal. That one's only got 1 shelf. This has got a shelf. And I'm going to put 2 shelves in that one. So there are just a few holes. So what I'm going to do is I made up a stick. You can see it's got marks on it. And I can hold that in here, drill a hole at the top on all of the shelves that are gonna get, and then cut that off with a chop saw, go around, drill all of those holes, cut that off with the chop saw, repeat, 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 until I get all of the holes that I want. It's not that big a deal, but normally I would, drill all those holes ahead of time on the drill press. So I'm gonna get doing that. I'm not gonna film it because you can't see anything with my big head in the way in there. And then I'm gonna cut the shelves to size and we'll put them in. So just using the table saw and the panel saw, I cut the shelves to size. And then they just slip in like that. And there, voila. We are gonna put 2 shelves in this one. But you know, they're shallow and deep and stuff gets lost in the back. But I think in this one we're gonna put like baking pan, like the glass baking dishes that are big and flat. We can put those in there and they don't have to be so tall. All right, as you can see, I have all the parts for the drawers. This is 1/2-inch Baltic birch. And I'm using just regular D3, 1/2-inch D3 plywood for the bottoms. And anyway, there are 9 drawers. I've got them all the parts made to that point. So that's the groove for the plywood in the bottom of the drawers. Fit right in there. The next part of this, I'm actually gonna wet these and then let them dry and sand them. It'd be nice to be able to pre-finish them before I assemble them, but I'm not gonna have that luxury. I'm gonna actually assemble them. So I wanna get the insides as smooth and ready for finish as I can. There's the next door. All right, after I glued them all up and they were dry, I sanded the ends lightly just to take the glue off, and I sanded the tops to take the table saw marks off. And now I'll get you set up here. The next step is I'm going to edge tape the top. Now you don't have to. I mean, this Baltic birch is pretty nice to look at, even the edge grain, but I'm going to use this edge banding tape and get all the tape off of here. I don't think I have enough, but we're gonna go as far as I can. I'm gonna put this all on and heat it up with an iron and put it on and cut it off even. It just makes it a little bit more finished look. All right, that's what it looks like all done with the tape on, and they're all cleaned up. And so these are ready to be, the outsides need to be sanded. And then I'm actually going to fit the drawers into the carcasses. So they're getting closer. Well, it's another cold morning, but I'm down the shop plugging away at our kitchen. I got all of the drawer boxes, the drawers themselves, all made. Those three, these three here, and those three there, total 9. So the next step for those is to put hardware on them and actually hang them in their openings, and then it'll be drawer fronts. I did get this pull-out tray drawer done. That's what it looks like. We've never had one of these, and it's going to be really nice. There'll be a lot more efficient holding trays and pans up on their edges. So that's going to be really nice. And these are really kind of hard to fit because the margins on this are pretty close. I'm going to do some tweaking on it to get it to tip back in there a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's going to be a nice asset to the kitchen. So I'm going to start working on hardware on the drawers, and then drawer fronts, and then start putting it all together. All right, I got all the drawers mounted in their correct spots, and I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I've got all the drawer fronts to make, and they're pretty easy because they're just all solid wood. So there's a little sliver, and then there's a bunch of final sanding before everything gets taken apart and brought up to the house to start getting the finish put on it. There are the drawer fronts fit. Of course, they're not sanded or anything. So I've got all of the drawer fronts fit to that point. And that's really the end of the part number 2. I'm going to spend the rest of the day sanding and disassembling and bringing all the stuff up to the house in preparation to put a finish on stuff. So stick around for the last series in the kitchen build. It's coming up. Thanks for watching.